Sokolnikov. Nailed it. Misha Sokolnikov, and he is the Director of Product Marketing Security with Microsoft, and he's going to talk about go-to-market strategy. Welcome, Misha. And Misha, the clicker is right there on the podium for you.
I was looking for it. Thank you. Yes. Thank you so much, Tim. Hi, everyone. All right. Thanks so much. Really appreciate. Oh, the clock is ticking. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Misha Sokolnikov. I lead security incubations at Microsoft. Security incubations is essentially every new product that we'll launch in the security business, or if we acquire a company. This is, my team figures out how to integrate that company and make it successful within Microsoft. So in my role, I actually do spend a lot of time, Ali spoke about this, thinking about go-to-market strategy. I'm not going to talk a lot about the go-to-market strategy as a topic per se. I'm going to talk about something a little bit more niche, which is how to apply design thinking when you take new products to market. That's the topic. And here's the problem. I see it a lot. I see it a lot at Microsoft. I see it a lot in many different companies, actually. You have an idea. You want to turn it into a product. It's very rare that a company fails there. It doesn't mean it's easy, but actually getting to a point from where you have an idea and you build something, you can get there. And companies typically figure out how to get there. The problems start to happen, many problems start to happen, when you take that product and you want to take it to the market. This is where companies admit that they don't have the right muscle. They don't have the right people. They don't know where to start. You've all probably heard some version of the statistic that 9 out of 10 startups fail. It doesn't need to be a startup, by the way. I started my career at a company called P&G, and I read recently that at P&G, 3 out of 4 product launches fail. So the odds from the beginning are not in our favor. And when you look at the post-mortem for where companies fail, again, this is not my data, but you'll probably see something along these lines. It's not tech problems. It's not operations problems. It's not legal problems. It has something to do with either marketing, product market fit. I think somebody mentioned this already. So the vast majority of problems are actually on us. It doesn't mean that products don't fail. What I'm trying to point out here is that very often companies will fold and products will fail because something is wrong with how they take those products to market. What I've heard in my career is this postmortem. The product was great, but the market failed to respond. And here's where go-to-market comes in. The promise of go-to-market is actually pretty straightforward, and it's true, too. You have your idea, you have your product. Before you take it to market, you want to figure out a few things. You want to figure out what your market is, who your buyer is, what kind of value prop you have, packaging and pricing, all of those things. And then the journey gets a little bit smoother. So that's the idea. And to be fair, each of these little boxes deserves a dedicated conversation of its own. I'm not going to talk too much about that. What I wanted to talk about is the idea of when go-to-market fails too. The reality is, in the words of a military strategist, Karl von Clausewitz, no campaign plan survives first contact with the enemy. If I were to put it in the language of go-to-market strategy, no go-to-market strategy survives the first contact with the customer. So why does that happen? I picked a picture that I think demonstrates it pretty well. Show of hands, have you seen this in real life? So my personal experience, I'm going to show here. I might even have. So this is my go-to-market strategy. It's perfect. It's beautiful. It works in theory, right? And then when I take it to life, I realize that people are not like that at all. They have their own way of dealing with life. They have their own priorities. And our natural response as marketers, and maybe you're better than me, I'll talk about myself to be fair. The first thing we do is, they're wrong, clearly, right? They're not doing the right thing. Maybe I should put a sign that says, don't walk here. Or maybe there should be a fine. Or maybe there's a fence that we need to put there so people actually use our go-to-market strategy, right? Very often, we have this bias that we are the customer, and we make decisions for customers, and this is where go-to-market strategies typically fail. And especially in small companies, when you define your market, when you define your customer, where you define your channels and all of those things, those definitions change, and they change very quickly. So what I found from my experience, it's really important to actually go back to the customer and think about how you can adjust your strategy along the way so that every time you see a different behavior, every time you see a behavior that's not consistent with your view of the world, you can adjust. And this is where I got curious, because there is this notion of design thinking. How many of you have heard of design thinking? Show of hands. All right, thank you. Sounds like most of you have heard about it. If you haven't, design thinking is a methodology created at Stanford, and the idea of design thinking is really to create a human-centric way of understanding the customer that eventually takes form in the knowledge of the customer that fuels product innovation, product development, and even marketing, and product marketing for that matter. The idea is you always want to start with empathy. You really want to empathize with your customer. And using that empathy, using that understanding of the customer, you can better define a problem that you're solving for them. You can create ideas that actually resonate more strongly with those customers. You can test those ideas, again, with the customers. And that process gets tested, and it continues. It's perpetual. Essentially, a lot of companies like Apple, like P&G, use this methodology and work with studios like IDEO, the pioneers of that methodology, to create new products. So I was curious, what would it take for us to look at go-to-market strategy and apply those methodologies to make sure that our go-to-market strategies work? And I have a few pieces of advice that personally have helped me, and I think they might help you as well. First, start early. I purposefully picked the ugliest picture of a product development framework that I could find. This is what the world looks like according to product experts from the 90s, most likely. You have your idea, you screen all the different ideas, you evaluate them, you go through development, R&D, testing, ROI estimates, and all of that. And you see, at the very end of that list, you should probably start production and marketing somewhere there, right? Does that sound familiar? Have you been in a situation where a product has been built and you learn about it 2 weeks before it needs to be launched? Yeah? So this is it. This is at the very heart of most of the product cultures that we work with. Marketing is an afterthought, product marketing is an afterthought, and go-to-market strategy is an afterthought. And one of the best things you can do as you think about go-to-market strategy is look at this process from idea to concept to solution to market, and you don't start where it says market. You actually start at the very beginning. And what it means, and Ali spoke about it today already, you have to earn the seat at the table. You need to be there early. You want to make sure that your stakeholders know that when you're thinking about the business, when you're thinking about a new product, when you're thinking about a new capability, you should start thinking about how to take it to market even before you're building that product. I'm not saying it's not impossible to create a winning go-to-market strategy if you're late in that process. All I'm saying is if you start early, your odds are so much higher. We're in Vegas today, and people are all about their odds. I think it's one of those areas where our collective and individual lives get so much better if we start early. The second thing I wanted to talk about is empathy. I mentioned this already today. Pretty much every company today prides themselves for being customer-centric. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great aspiration. We all like to think that we know the customer. When it comes to understanding the customer, doing research, doing any kind of ethnographic studies, one of the most interesting things that I found out is there's a natural tendency for us to focus on what customers say. And what design thinking teaches us is if you look a little bit deeper at what people actually do and how they feel, and sometimes what they don't say, what they don't do, and what they don't feel, this is where the most powerful insights typically live. So if your customer tells you, I want X, and you go ahead and do it, and you build your go-to-market strategy around that, it may work. There's nothing wrong with that. The reality is the power of the insight, the power of your strategy will probably multiply as you go deeper into why it matters to them, how it makes them feel, how it makes them live their life outside of using your product. So using empathy and understanding all of those insights is important. I'll give you one tool that you may use, and it's called an empathy map. Are you familiar with it? Show of hands, no? All right, a few people are. There's nothing fancy here, by the way. It's just a more structured way of understanding your customer where instead of just capturing what they say, you try to document how do they feel, what are they acting, what kind of pains and what kind of gains are they dealing with in any given situations. And I apologize, the font is a little small. I hope you guys get the slides later. If you Google an empathy map, you'll get 10,000 versions of this, and go crazy, make it your own. It doesn't have to be anything super scientific. The idea is really to capture what your customers are saying and what they're doing at a much more structured and deeper level. So use your empathy maps next time you talk to a customer, and chances are you'll learn, you'll get the insights that you otherwise might not be able to get. The third thing I'm going to talk about is embracing life. And I already showed you the picture of the park and how customers typically behave in a way that we may not always expect. The reality is, this is your product, and this is you. You spend the majority of your waking hours thinking about it. And we often assume that customers care as much as we do about our product. The reality is, our customer's life is a lot bigger than that. And there are two implications that are important from there. The first one is, see my hands are shaking, we tend to focus on the area where our product overlaps with our customers. Because we really think that where those two overlap, this is where magic happens. This is where you figure out the product market fit. What I've learned is some of the more impactful decisions you're going to be making about your business will come from understanding this area. And it's so easy to overlook, so easy to ignore. I'll give you a couple of tools on how you can document that part of their life a little bit better. And the tool that I'm going to start with is called Customer Journey Map. Again, I'll ask how many of you are familiar with it? All right, cool. So again, nothing super fancy here. The idea is very simple. Take any part of their life. It doesn't have to do much with the product, in fact. Sometimes I work in security, and one of my personas is a Chief Information Security Officer. And what I learned is these people like their weekends, and they like to spend their weekends with their families. And what they don't like is getting a call in the middle of the night because there is a security incident. So one of the things that we are figuring out internally is how to make sure that people spend their weekends at home with their families and the amount of guidance, the amount of interaction that they need with their security team is minimal. So it could be reporting, it could be automation, it could be multiple different things. The idea is to find the pain points in their lives. It can be about your product, it can be about how they spend their morning, it can be about how productive they want to be while they're driving from work to home. Try and use and apply this map across different scenarios, and chances are you'll learn some of the things that they love and things they don't like that might be very consequential to your business. Another thing, again, forgive me, the templates are very, like you don't need to read this thing, right? Again, you can Google some of the customer journey maps. People make them as they want. Some people put KPIs there. Some people talk about business priorities. What else do we have here? We have touch points, customer goals, right? You can be as rigorous or not so rigorous as you want. The idea is really to find a methodology that would meaningfully tell you about how customers feel through the journey with your product or otherwise. So we spoke about customer journey map. The fourth thing I want to talk about is personas, and people here will probably start rolling their eyes and say, here we go again, another person talking about personas. I get it, right? You guys have all heard about this. The truth is, pretty much every company that I've been a part of, the companies that I advise, I go there and I ask them about their personas, and what happens is they kind of go somewhere, they dust off a 50-slide presentation that nobody has used for the last 2 years. Some people are smiling nervously. And they're like, here you go, this is it. And you can tell people have not been using this thing. In my experience, I'd rather have something as basic as a one-slider with a little bit of demographic information, a little bit about the person's role within the company if you're a B2B business, for example, than a 50-slide presentation based on a $200,000 marketing research project that nobody uses. And my personal opinion, I'm extremely biased on that, right? So I'll warn you. I would prefer that a snapshot like this lived on the desktop of every single person within the company. It may seem like today it doesn't make a difference, or tomorrow it doesn't make a difference, or by the end of the week your engineering team will come to you and tell you that this thing is stupid and they're done with it. And it's okay, right? Some of the most meaningful and profound things happen after a year or 2 years of using it. And you can update it, of course. The truth is, being constantly reminded who we're working for and confronted with this truth is truly powerful in the long run. I'll share a personal story here. I started my career at P&G. Old Spice is one of the brands that I worked on. This is the campaign where we rebranded Old Spice. Have you seen it? Okay, good. What's not so obvious about this campaign is that front and center is a muscular man with a naked torso, which has not been the imagery that had traditionally been appealing to men who buy deodorants, right? If it doesn't sound strange to you, I mean, clearly they made a campaign that was entertaining, right? And that's great. The bigger story behind the campaign is that for the first time, we confronted the truth that the buyer of a deodorant is a woman. So while men use the deodorants, usually they're partners who buy the deodorant for them. And what we did, and one of the most interesting things about this campaign was to create a campaign where it resonates with the user, but more importantly, it resonates with the buyer too. And it's really, really, really hard. So that's the story behind Old Spice. And this story is about confronting the truth and realizing that you cannot ignore your buyer. You need to work with them too. I'm going to continue on this topic too and talk about stakeholders more broadly. So there's a tool called Stakeholder Map. It's a very, very loose description. I'll just describe what I mean. Essentially, you have your user in the center. In this case, it was a man who uses a deodorant. Then you can also try to think about all the stakeholders that play a role in the decision-making process. In the case of Old Spice, it was a partner, right? If you look at it more broadly, you may actually start thinking about what are the industry forces, what are the laws, government institutions that may actually influence the decision. And you can start mapping all of those stakeholders out in a tool like a stakeholder map. And you may discover that your go-to-market strategy may actually vary very drastically from that of your competitors. Let me give you an example. So Yamaha, they, among other things, make pianos. Many decades ago, they made some really important decisions about the go-to-market strategy. First, they decided at the very heart of our stakeholder map will not be a professional piano player. It will actually be a student. It will be a child. How many of you, by the way, played a piano, a Yamaha piano maybe? All right, good. So this is the number one instrument. What Yamaha realized is we're not going to compete for the market of professional pianists. Chances are those people already have pianos to begin with, and a piano is not an instrument that you change every year. Those things are freaking heavy and expensive, right? So newcomers, new people to the market. The next thing they realized is, well, children actually don't have the money to buy pianos, right? No surprises there. Parents buy pianos. And parents themselves, if they don't have an instrument already, chances are they know next to nothing about pianos. So they need to go and talk to someone to buy an instrument. Where do you go? You go to a dealership, of course, or you go to a piano technician, a tuner, who will tell you, this is the instrument that you want to go with. And this is the genius of the Yamaha go-to-market strategy. They created an instrument for a tuner, for a piano technician. They created an instrument that's easy to open, easy to access, easy to tune and maintain, easy to move. If you talk to a piano technician, they will tell you the amount of time it takes to service a Yamaha piano is often twice as little as that with a German instrument. So this is the genius of their go-to-market strategy. They started with the influencer, a tuner. They built an instrument really truthfully for the tuner. And that tuner influenced the buyer, who is a parent. And that's how some of you ended up with a Yamaha piano in your living rooms. All right, I'm going to talk about growth. And I'll admit, I see this a lot. When we are working with our stakeholders, with our CEOs, with our business leaders, as PMMs, we're often expected to build this, like a massive engine, a massive growth engine that flies, that carries thousands of passengers, that consumes next to no money, and like all of those things. The reality is pretty much always, especially if you're a startup, you're not expected to tackle your entire go-to-market strategy at once. In fact, if you break it down into meaningful pieces and prototype through every step of your go-to-market challenges, you'll be much better off and you'll be meaningfully more successful doing so. The reality of your go-to-market is not that you're building a Boeing 474. You're probably starting with a golf cart. And then it may turn into a car or a pickup truck, and then maybe wings will appear, and eventually, it will turn into a plane, right? So what I mean by that is a lot of startups, when they come to me, they tell me, how do I get to 10,000 customers? And I ask them, how many customers do you have today? And the answer is usually 0, or 5, 10. So the way I look at the growth challenge when it comes to building a strategy is to actually redefine the strategy every step of the way. So if you're a startup, your first question may be, how can we have someone test it? The second thing could be, how can we have someone use it for free? The next one could be, how can we sell 5 products at a discount? Then it could be, how can we sell 20 and get reviews? Then it could be, how can we sell 50 digitally, for example, without using Salesforce? How can we upsell? Or then how can we take our existing customer base and take it from 100 to 500? So your growth challenges, your growth objectives will need to be redefined along the way. And each of these challenges is an experiment that allows you an opportunity to prototype, test things, and make adjustments along the way. The last thing I'll say, and this is what IDEO and all the companies that came up with design thinking are doing a lot, they realize that if you are alone in your company caring about innovation, if you are the only person responsible for your go-to-market strategy, if you're the only person responsible for taking your products to market, and you know all of the things that we just discussed, it actually doesn't matter. You really need to bring your entire company along on the journey. Ali, you spoke today about how you approved a plan with your executive leadership team. And this is exactly where what we're learning today, other people within our company should know too. Oftentimes people think about our work as something esoteric, as something that we do haphazardly. Oh, personas didn't work, let's try and use a customer journey. Maybe that one will stick, right? There's a lot of process, there's a lot of great thinking, there's a lot of methodology behind the work that we do. Whether it's design thinking, whether it's everything that the Product Market Alliance teaches you, the most amazing thing we can do is educate our stakeholders that our profession has a lot of structure, has a lot of process, and that kind of structure gives a lot of faith and a lot of trust in what we do. So the last thing I'll give you is re-educate your stakeholders. This is the summary. I gave you a couple of tools like empathy map, personas, customer journey maps. Please use them, Google them. You'll find plenty of templates online. And with that, I just wanted to wish you the very best of luck. Thank you.
Well done, well done. I think we have the word cloud right here. Top questions, okay. We have a few questions for you, if you want to take them away, my friend.
Yes, sales team, definitely. Sounds like spoken from personal experience. Happens a lot. I would write like email automation for sales, and they would tell me, you know what, we're not going to use it, thank you. And they would go on writing their own horrible emails. It happens, right? It's one of the true life examples. Radical idea I'd like your thoughts on. Define the go-to-market strategy before you build the product or feature. Thoughts? Yeah, I can see how that can work, absolutely. Sometimes we may realize that like, geographically, economically, financially, we're not in a place, for example, to hire a sales team. Or we will never be able to outcompete with traditional digital advertising, other companies, other competitors. So yeah, you may sometimes creating those limitations around how you go to market allows you to transform the way you build product too. Yeah, absolutely true. Will we get access to the slides? Rose, will we get, is Rose here? Yes, the answer is yes. How does MS, that would be me, tackle understanding people plus empathy when developing products? Is there a dedicated team conducting research focus groups with actual users? It can be the case. I'm part of a massive organization that has all the money and resources to actually do research, and there are other people who are doing it, which is amazing. This is awesome, right? However, I've noticed that every time you do that kind of research, if you don't have your product team participate, if you don't have your PMMs, if you don't have your research and development teams at the table actually participating in the research, chances are you're just wasting your time and money. So I'm not sure I'm answering the question. There could be a dedicated team, but it doesn't mean that other teams need to exclude themselves from the process. The nature of any kind of research is all hands on deck. So a team is just a way of executing it. The truth is you still need to be there when it's happening. Yeah.
That was my question. I was just wondering how it's actually executed. So, when you're developing that empathy map,
Yeah.
is it taking into account actual user feedback to build those?
So when we were preparing for that Old Spice campaign, I literally stood next to a man taking a shower. I kid you not. So the method, I'm hesitant to talk about methodologies because in customer research, you can get to the same outcome using very different tools, right? The idea is, yeah, you absolutely are there in front of the customer. And it's usually like things like empathy map and customer journey maps. They kick in later in the process where you sit with the team, where you absorb all the information. But it's very much, it needs to be an immersive process. If it doesn't feel a little bit uncomfortable when you're doing research, you're probably playing it safe. Yeah.
Great. Okay, we are out of time for Misha, but thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Give him a round of applause.
Thanks.
And we're moving right along. You guys can keep the applause going for